Hi, I'm Shaka Hislop, and you're here at Extra Time TV.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another special edition of Extra Time TV. I know it's the worst kept secret ever in life that I'm an Argentina fan. The jersey doesn't give it away, and what's going on in the background, and pretty much every single video I've done my entire life. I think, yeah, I don't know what to say anymore. But once again, I have my special friend and also a great fan with great knowledge of Argentina, Sivan John of the Bola Bola show. How are you today?
Hey, Andre, what's up, everybody? I'm doing fantastic, doing fine. It's not just your worst kept secret. Everybody knows me as well. I'm a big Argentina fan. Practically the entire nation where I'm living in. By the way, those of you who don't know, I'm from Malaysia.
Yes.
Everybody knows just what a big Argentina fan I am. So yes, today's show, I'm really, really excited to talk about this particular upcoming World Cup regarding Argentina.
Yes. So first things first, the squad was finally announced by Scaloni today. So obviously leading up to that, one of the big, conversation points was Lo Celso's injury, and also Acuna also possibly, not being at 100%. So I'm just going to call out the list real quick for those of you who don't know. I'm pretty sure Sivan knows it, as like I do. So the goalkeepers are Emiliano Martinez, Geronimo Riuli, Franco Armani, Molina, defenders Molina, Gonzalo Montiel, Christian Romero, Petzela, Nicolas Otamendi, Lisandro Martinez, Marcos Acuna. So we were worried about that, but he's in. Nicolas Tagliafico, Juan Foyth. That's something we'll talk about just now. Midfielders, Rodrigo de Paul, Leandro Paredes, Alexis McAllister. So interesting. Guido Rodriguez, Alejandro Papu Gomez, Enzo Fernandez, Ezequiel Palacios, and then the forwards, which, not much surprises there. Maybe one. Angel Di Maria, Lautaro Martinez, Julian Alvarez, Nicolas Gonzalez, Joaquin Correa, Paulo Dybala, and of course, that number 10, you all may have heard of him, Lionel Messi. So, Sivan, what are your initial thoughts of the final squad?
Well, the fact that you mentioned all the names, we know for a fact that it's one glaring omission, not by his choice or not by Scaloni's choice, but because of circumstances, which is Giovanni Lo Celso. Apart from that, I think overall, I can say that we kind of knew at least 90 or 95% of the squad setup that is going to be just looking like what we're seeing right now. But without Lo Celso, that's going to be a major question. How would Argentina cope that absent? Because if we remember when Scaloni took over the job until now, Lo Celso has been primarily, I would say, one of the key players that have been a mainstay in that midfield setup. So it's interesting to see. I don't want to feel scared. I don't want to make anybody feel scared about this because he's not going to be there at the World Cup. Because I truly believe that we do have other players who can step into his shoes, but not necessarily play his role, but probably give a different dimension. I truly believe that Scaloni, Aima, and the rest of the coaching staff would have probably looked into all this. So yeah, overall, I would say I'm very happy, much happier than when I was 4 years ago. You know me 4 years ago. What was it like with that team, Sampaoli, and that? Then oh boy, let's not even go there.
Dark times.
Yeah, it was dark times. But you can. I did posted a tweet on what was it like in 2018 and 22. It's a huge jump. It's just amazing. Just how do we went from that to this in that space of the last 4 years? Kudos to the coaching staff because they are, it's their, how do I put it? It's their credit of bringing this group of players together, whom we know have been there around in a while. I think they've been banging on the door. Let me in. I need to be part of this. I need to be part of Argentina. But for some odd reason, Sampaoli or maybe in other previous coaching staff never wanted to look at them. But yeah, now's the perfect time.
Correct. And you pretty much read my mind because folks, you'll realize Sivan and I, there's a reason why we're friends because obviously this, and I was happy with the squad, to be honest. I understood the omission of Lo Celso. We were all hoping he would go, but it is what it is. The injury it makes no sense carrying a player who may play, and then you may end up with a situation like maybe Gago in 2014 where, he just didn't get to perform well because he was just injured most of the time. And, situations like that where you take a player to the World Cup and he doesn't play at all and you end up losing a spot. And he's very vital. the way how Messi plays with him, I think there was a stat, I can't remember the exact figure right now, but a lot of the passes and his passing and his movement gives Messi a lot of freedom, along with Paredes and DePaul. And I think, as you said, with Scaloni created a team where, while it is a bit of a loss for Argentina, he has created a team that is no longer like in 2018, where if one key player is there, the entire team is in disarray, and you're going to have to let Messi come and carry the team on his back. That's one thing I really like that Scaloni did from the dark 2018 time, where it just seemed like, a team that was in complete disarray. Like you said, I don't want to get back into it. And, they really built a strong unit. I paid attention to some of those documentaries that they had. There was one on Amazon Prime, and then I didn't get to see the one on Netflix yet. But what is one thing you could see, there's a lot of unity in this team. You see it on and off the pitch. You see it even on social media, even with the pictures. More so than ever. From Martinez to DePaul, these guys, this is a tight group of players. And I think Scaloni, with all things considered, I think I'm happy with the squad. I know a lot of people, I read some of the comments in various sites and so on that, they were asking about the inclusion of Angel Correa. We'll start from the forward line in a little bit, but, we'll get into the players that were omitted. But personally, I think you and I agree, Sivan, that we're okay with the squads. And I think this is a squad equipped to do really well at the World Cup.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. This squad, I would say at least the quarterfinal stage is secured, at least up to that point. And it depends on who we meet and how do we adjust ourselves to that team. And, also depending on how the other team will turn up. I think, we got a good chance of, I don't want to sound too arrogant about it, but I think we can actually win this World Cup.
Yeah,
I truly believe we can. I'm not saying this because, it's simply because I'm a fan of Argentina, but even if I wasn't a fan at all, if I were to look at this team and what this team has accomplished over the last duration, 2-3 years, what is there not to believe that they can actually do it?
Yeah, correct. I'm the same here. I'm quietly confident that they can get it done. Of course, we all know, you and I have been looking at World Cups for a long time now. And, lots of things could happen. There's also that element of luck. You could have a really good team and, one bad officiating decision or something could completely throw your game off. So like, as you said, once you get to those knockout stages, it's kind of like anything goes. And you're right. It really depends on how the team handles it. And to me, the last Copa America was a perfect example of how everything was kind of going against Argentina. A lot of the officiating was just awful. It didn't seem like any of the calls were really going Argentina's way. So that, to me, I think that was an advantage to see how the players handle that. A lot of teams sort of, buckled under the pressure. I even remembered back in 2018 when we were playing France. The game was 4-3, and we had a couple minutes, and it actually looked like we were possibly capable of maybe snatching an equalizer. But the team kind of lost their cool, and even players like Otamendi, who seem like two totally different players now. Otamendi lost his cool, and then he kicked out I can't remember who it was at the time, and they, instead of just being calm, and this team, I've never really seen this team lose their cool yet. And Messi has really grown into his own as a captain and as a player. And then for those of you who, saw that little Netflix snippet they had of him giving the speech, if anybody had any doubts about his leadership style, it may not be the loud style of leadership, but it's definitely inspiring, and there's different types of leadership. And I think Messi has really come into his own, even where he's even confrontational sometimes. And I like that. I like this Messi. I don't know if it came with a beard. I know a lot of people before they won the Copa America, but you and I spoke about this. I liked that new version of Messi where he was ready to, even in games, give a little bit of, sass, like in the Colombia game, where after they won, he told the guy, and it wasn't arrogance. It's just that he was always a sort of withdrawn guy, and he still is, but he's no longer the pushover he was, I think. Yeah, he's and he really stepped up. But let's head into the squad a little bit. So we'll start with the goalkeepers at first. I think based obviously Martinez is, I think everybody will agree, barring any ridiculousness, that he would definitely be the starter. And obviously there's Rioli and Armani, but a lot of people there were shouts from Musso and things like that. But what do you think about the choice of those three keepers?
Well, I'm not surprisingly, Juan Musso is excluded, but then again, we got to give credit to Romani Rulli. I think he was outstanding with Villarreal over the last period of 12-18 months.
Yep.
So I think he really, forced himself way to this team. On on merits. I would say that. As far as Emi Martinez, he knew it's the number one choice. It's not going to change. Armani, I would like to think that maybe Scaloni wants a little bit of experience in the goalkeeping department, because most of our current goalkeepers who are available for international call-up aren't having experience in the World Cup. Armani has. He played in a couple of the last, I think he played against Nigeria in the last game. He played against France.
Yep.
So maybe a little bit of experience in that department will also be helpful, just in case if something happens. Because if you can remember, in 1990, when we lost Neri Pompido,
Yes,
it was a kind of a panic situation, but Sergio Goycochea came in and really stepped it up. So I think that's a bit of security in that, in terms of the three goalkeepers that Scaloni has chosen.
correct. And I mean, I've worked around teams on like national teams and club level, and I could tell you there's little things that as a fan you can tend to overlook. And sometimes you look at some players and be like, scratch your head, why did they pick that guy? There's so much things that take place off the pitch. And
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think that's probably the reasoning, because a lot of people, were critical of Armani, and it's like, he's Scaloni's favorite, whatever. But for the national team, I think that World Cup experience comes in handy in those games. Especially when you get to the knockout stages. God forbid there's an injury. You have a guy who's been there before, so he won't be overawed by the situation. And then, a goalkeeper like Rioli could also learn. So it's a bonus. So, but I think Martinez definitely. I'm totally fine with the selection. I think Martinez is the main guy, and I think he has the personality, as we saw, that he's ready to handle this thing. He's fearless. And then with somebody like Armani in the background just to give him any little tips, I think that'll be great. So I think the goalkeepers are pretty much very difficult to really disagree with. I know there's a lot of people who don't really are not huge fans of Armani, but I agree with your logic, Sivan. I think that's exactly why he should be there. Or at least
I mean, let's look at it from this perspective. I mean,
Mm.
he's not just there because providing experience of playing, but also some kind of guidance to the other two goalkeepers.
Mhm.
Because let's be honest, there's not many international caps with regards to Emi Martinez as a number one goalkeeper. He just, pretty much one of those players that burst into the scene in the pandemic era. He came in on his own in the pandemic era, first with Arsenal, then he had a great season with Aston Villa. And he wasn't even, if I'm not mistaken, he wasn't even starting in one of the first few games, or prior to the Copa America. There was a couple of World Cup qualifiers. So, experience here counts for one way or the other. I think that's where Armani comes in. He's sort of like a guidance to these other two goalkeepers, that this is what the World Cup is all about. You guys can do it. Don't worry about it. I was in the same position as you guys 4 years earlier. I had to come in at the most critical stage of the World Cup, which is against Nigeria. It's a win or die game.
Yep.
I'm sure you guys can do it as well.
Yep. And that's really important. Teams need those kind of guys, and combined with Messi and players in other positions, it's really important. It's always good to have players. In most cases, it helps. So let's talk about the defenders. So to me, there's honestly not much surprises at all. I mean, we have Molina, Montiel. I know a lot of people were 50-50 on Foyth, but I personally think Foyth is very talented. I think what hurt him, why people criticize him a little bit, is I think that Colombia game just before the Copa America, where he made that, he basically gave away the ball with a lapse in judgment. I think a lot of people kind of jumped on him for that he has that tendency to do that little unnecessary dribble. But I think Scaloni dropping him actually benefited him a lot. It probably gave him focus, and then also playing in different positions, playing in the midfield as well. He does add an option if needed. If Scaloni wants to go that way, he can also jump in the middle if required. I don't think they'll need to, but I think that's the versatility of Foyth. I think is a reason why he ended up coming in as well. And of course, the rest of the defenders are pretty much expected: Otamendi, Martinez, Acuna, Romero, and those guys. So what do you think? What do you think about the defenders and the inclusion of Foyth?
I mean, kind of expected. I think more or less we knew that this is going to be the defensive lineup for Argentina. And obviously, I think in terms of the center-back pairing, Otamendi and Romero, I think it's pretty much a solid partnership, one that's really, complement both players. I wasn't really always a big fan of Otamendi.
I remember,
Yes, but, in these last couple of years, I think ever since leaving Man City, for that matter, I think he's become a different player altogether. And I think when he comes nowadays when he comes to Argentina, he sort of stepped it up big time.
Yep.
And Romero, who probably never had that international experience, benefited from having a player like Otamendi beside him. They complemented, they worked well with each other. Now, I don't know if Scaloni is ever thinking about doing this, but I've heard it many times. A 3-man center back, going back to the old days when Argentina used to play a 3-5-2 formation, between Romero, Otamendi, and a certain Lisandro Martinez. Because obviously, I've seen Martinez with Man United this season. Man.
Yep.
He just takes my breath away every time he plays. I just kind of wish that there was a little bit more role for him in the Argentina setup.
Yep.
But I'm not too sure whether or not if Scaloni is ever thinking of a 3-man center back at the moment.
Yep, and that's the thing. These guys, having the luxury of these guys gives Argentina a lot of flexibility that they could, if they needed to, switch to 3 at the back with those guys. Because even in FIFA, as you could see behind folks, that's very good. If we need to play 3 center backs and maybe 2 wing backs or whatever, these guys are more than capable. They are all ball playing defenders. I think also another contributing factor to why the defenders they seem at ease, especially Otamendi as well. I think and you can let me know what you think about this. Having players like Walter Samuel and Roberto Ayala on the coaching staff, I think I love those guys when they were players and they were leaders. Ayala was more vocal than Samuel, but they were top center backs, in case people forgot. And I think having those guys on the national setup really helped Otamendi in particular. I could see Walter Samuel really mentoring Otamendi. Even sometimes he kind of looks like him. He has the kind of Walter Samuel look at times. And then, of course, you have Roberto Ayala. So I really believe Scaloni and his staff were really influential in really getting that defense, because one of the first things I noticed when Scaloni took over is that he really worked on tightening up the defense. And I think he was able to find that solution to get Otamendi, as well as the other guys, to really step up their game and really refine their game. Because I know what I was one of those few people who was kind of defending Otamendi because I knew he was better than what we were seeing. But he was a liability. At one point, I would be scared every time Otamendi got the ball. I thought, he was a red card just waiting to happen, especially after, the last World Cup. And then, something happened and, he left Man City and went to back to Portugal in Benfica. And he really got it together. But what do you think? Do you think Ayala and Samuel and they were really crucial in getting these guys to really step their game up?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. The fact that remains that these, we haven't really had the kind of center back that what Ayala and Samuel used to be for us. It's been a while since we had those type of players. I can't remember who we had in the last World Cup apart from Otamendi at center back. But I remember in the 2014 World Cup, we actually started the final with a certain Martin Demichelis, who by then was way past his best.
Yep.
But somehow or other, he made it to the starting 11, all because he won a Premier League title with Man City.
Yep.
So this is the one World Cup I would say in a very long time that where I'm very, very comfortable with what we have at the back. And kudos to both. And don't forget, Diego Placenti, I think he's also part of the coaching setup.
Yep.
Also a defensive player. I think, probably I'm just thinking outside the box here. Scaloni might have thought, if we're going to rebuild this team, it shouldn't be just the idea of focusing around Messi, but we need to start from ground up. Let's build that center back. Let's strengthen our defense first, because that's what has been the key in Scaloni's tactical all this while.
Scaloni, and just before we head into the midfielders, he really has really done an amazing job. I mean, we saw a lot of people didn't give him much of a shot. Like I heard a lot of people, even within my region, saying, Scaloni's, we've had quote unquote better coaches with bigger names. And, Scaloni was the unlikely kind of guy that just kind of came under the radar and brought what I call is Pecker boys, because of the Peckerman system. And, the last time I think there was a bit of calm, for me at least, was when Peckerman was around, although there was a couple of things I disagreed with. You could see now there's a bit of a system in place with Argentina, not just in the present, but, for the future as well. That, these guys, their work extends beyond the national team. And you're starting to see, even after the World Cup, there are players that, because if this squad wasn't as good as it was, they'd probably make this team. But, we'll talk about that afterwards, because there's so much we could. If you give Sivan and us a chance, we'll speak for hours about Argentina. So we're going to try to, keep it, condensed. So, we're going to head to the midfield now. So, obviously in the midfield, this is where we'll probably have a little discussion back to Lo Celso. So it's obviously the Paul Paredes. McAllister I know a lot of people seem to be a bit divided on him, and also, a lot of people, Enzo Fernandez was, a lot of people have been calling for him to be included. I've seen it in all the forums and so on. He is good. And then, of course, Ezequiel Palacios, who has injury problems, along with a couple other guys, which, he's from Bayern Leverkusen. Alario, anyway, we'll get to that after all. But injuries kind of cost Alario his spot, I think. I think Alario was Scaloni's first choice. But anyway, we're speaking about midfielders. What do you think about the people that Scaloni chose to step in for Lo Celso, which would be McAllister and not necessarily in their position, but what do you think about those guys?
Well, I think when you look at what McAllister and Enzo Fernandez, or even Palacios, or even Papu Gomez for that matter, I think what Scaloni is trying to look at is options rather than I need him to fill in for Lo Celso. I don't think Scaloni is thinking in that sense. He understood Lo Celso is just one of a kind player. He works differently. But now we need to see, if there's another way that we can make this happen, and trying to link the midfield and the attacking lineup, especially with Messi. Messi and Lo Celso, it's an unbreakable bond. It just cannot be replicated. But I think, rather than trying to replicate it, I think what Scaloni is trying to do is recreate something else with the other players. That's my view.
Yep. Because obviously, I know you and I spoke about this, off air. When we first heard about it, I think all Argentinian fans were kind of like, this again, because no matter how good our squads are, there's always that one guy or some key player that always kind of misses out or is usually not selected by the coach. It seems like that's the one area we never seem to catch a break where we have a full squad. That's the players we want. And it's usually a lot of injuries. This time around, thankfully, it's really just Lo Celso and Acuna. And then of course Lo Celso was omitted, but Acuna is basically apparently Scaloni obviously evaluated him and he can't play. And interestingly enough, why I bring him up, in the past, Acuna has played in that position. I remember in the 2019 Copa America, if I'm not mistaken, when Scaloni first came in, at one point, Acuna, people forgot, used to play in the midfield on the left side of the midfield three. And, so he is capable of playing there if required. Hopefully he's fit. As you said, I don't think he's trying to really outwardly replace that player. Like, I want another Lo Celso. I think he gets it. He is not a guy you could just copy and paste and bring in another guy. I think it kind of reminds me of Sabella a little bit when he realized he couldn't really depend on Gago in 2014. He used players like Enzo Perez and Lucas Biglia, I think, way more than he planned to. And what he did was he just adjusted how the team played. And, it may not have been pretty at the time, but it got us to the final, where we were very solid. So I think Scaloni is the kind of coach, clearly, I think he's very intelligent. I think they clearly thought about this scenario. Is it ideal? Of course not. But I think, Enzo Perez, Papu, I don't know how he's going to do it. But if you had to guess, I mean, obviously in the past, he stuck with DePaul, Paredes, and Lo Celso most of the time. If you had to guess, how do you think he'll probably lay out his midfield, if you had to guess?
I think Paredes and DePaul, they're pretty much secured. Provided, touchwood, something doesn't happen, I think they're pretty much there in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
But replacing Lo Celso, I have a feeling, probably, I think Scaloni is going to go with McAllister. I just got a feel for that.
He seems to like him a lot.
And with Papu Gomez being more of a backup because of his experience, and and I think he's more versatility in terms of going forward rather than tracking backwards. So I think that's the direction I'm seeing where Scaloni is heading. Although I do kind of like Enzo Fernandez, but then again, I'm quite interesting to see what options that he brings to the table.
Correct. And oftentimes, as we've seen in the past, some players are really good, and sometimes it doesn't translate immediately onto the national team. We all remember Pavon and Meza. I mean, I try to forget Meza sometimes, but they looked really good. Heading into the World Cup, everybody's like, okay, not bad, and then it just never worked out. So and I think it's because the pressure of that's a whole other topic, but I think it's just everything was wrong for them at the time. I think they just came in at the wrong time. And it just was just the worst possible environment to be in at the time. But I think we'll see, because I think he's going to play I think they're going to try to sneak in a couple of matches, if I'm not mistaken, because that's one of the things about this World Cup being when it is. You know, a lot of people are criticizing that literally days before the World Cup, people are still playing league matches. You know, as a national coach, you know, Scaloni's probably sitting in a chair like this, you know, like, you know, just get these matches over with. I think Sampaoli had the sense to let some of the Argentines not play. I don't know if that's intentional or not. But that's a huge concern. So we'll see as the tournament gets closer. I'm pretty sure we'll get some little updates on little lineups on various places, what solutions he will try. But I think he will probably have to make a quick decision based on the games before the World Cup. If he will probably play Enzo, because you know Enzo, like you said with Romero and those guys, will he be that player that just comes in and is lightning in a bottle, or you know, is he the kind of player that needs time? Because I know a lot of people have been critical of McAllister. He is a great player, but you know, sometimes it didn't seem like he was really clicking with that trio. But I think credit to Scaloni, he was trying those things out when we qualified, and I think that's benefiting him now because now he knows what he wants. I think, of course, he preferred if Lo Celso was there, but you know, I guess we'll see how that goes. So to be TBD, I guess.
Yeah.
So let's. Yeah.
And I mean, just to share what you just mentioned, Sampaoli.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel we need to give him a little bit of credit for keeping our guys fresh, not bringing them through Sevilla's last game, if I'm not mistaken. I think he kept all the Argentinian players who were part of Scaloni's, you know, the part of the World Cup teams, you know, pretty much gave them a break, not getting them involved in the game. I mean, no matter what's said and done, what happened in 2018, I'm pretty damn sure deep down in his heart, you know, he's still a proud Argentinian and wants to do something to help this team.
Yep.
So kudos to him. Thank you. Thank you, Sampaoli.
Yeah, it shows some class because you know he took a lot of hits. You know, his reputation took a massive hit, and you know, I guess, and also people forgot Scaloni was a part of his staff, so they clearly have that, you know, that relationship there, you know. So I think, you know, he's showing, you know, listen, you know, I want my team to do well. If that's his way of helping, that in the way he couldn't help in 2018, you know, he was put in a very rough situation. The AFA was beginning to now fix itself. Like I said, that's a whole other topic, and we'll talk about it another time. But you know, I think that was good on his part to really, because I was worried about Acuna and these other guys, and they needed some rest. So let's talk about the forwards now. You know, obviously, you know, everybody, Leo Messi, you know, that kind of goes without saying. But you know, Angel Di Maria, Lautaro Martinez, Alvarez, you know, Gonzalez, Correa. Now, a lot of people weren't sure about Dybala because, you know, he had a little bit of injury. Not a little bit, he had an injury. And a lot of Argentinian fans were like, oh, goodness, you know, he started to really look like he was comfortable now. After the Finalissima, you know, he really looked at home. You know, he never really seemed to really click with the Argentinian team for a long time. Even people were saying, just forget about him, it's just not working. But it seems Scaloni is able to kind of get the best out of these guys. And, you know, it was a scare, but it seems like he's making it. A lot of people raise the question, you know, what about Angel Correa? No, I'm thinking because of how this squad is made up, it was always going to cost it was always going to be a forward that was probably going to get the axe. Obviously, it can only fit a certain amount of players. I like Angel Correa. If I had my way if there was a way to squeeze him in, I would have. But, you know, what do you think about Angel Correa not making it in?
Well, I don't know. If it was up to me, I think I would have still gone with Angel Correa because of his experience being with this team. We haven't seen much of Joaquin Correa, to be honest, with Argentina. I mean, he's been there. He's been part of the setup in and out. But Angel Correa, I think he's far more of a bigger mainstay than Joaquin ever is. But I've been reading some tweets. I'm seeing some, you know, opinions from Argentina fans out there who feel that Joaquin Correa could probably do more for Scaloni than Angel. So, you know, if that's the vibe that I'm getting, then I don't think we can say that Scaloni is wrong in this aspect.
Yep.
As much as I like Angel Correa, just like you, but I think, you know, Joaquin Correa probably does bring something a little bit more for this Argentina team than Angel could do.
Yep. And they're sorry.
So I don't know. I mean, for you being an Inter Milan fan, you've probably seen more of him. What's your take?
The thing is, I have like mixed views because I like both players. If there was a way to include both of them, I would have liked it because, you know, Correa has very interesting characteristics. And I know why some people are a bit skeptical because he's able to play out wide. Scaloni and Inzaghi like to play him as a a proper striker when required, like a straight up number 9. Clearly they see something in training that makes them believe that because he has the height. But Inter Milan fans are often divided on this because I like Joaquin Correa a lot. I think he's very versatile and talented. I think sometimes he gets a lot of stick because he gets injured regularly, and then the way he plays, he's not always very clinical, but there's so much more to his game that he brings. Where even if he's not being used as an out and out forward, he can do other things in offense as well. And that's the thing. Angel Correa as well. He has different characteristics. He's more of a low center of gravity type player, but he also finishes really well. And I think maybe the one thing that people will criticize Joaquin a little bit for is that he's not always clinical with his finishing, as I said before. And I think that is a bit of a worry for some fans, but he does bring different characteristics that we don't have. Like, for example, it's been a long while since Argentina has had a really tall striker, that could cause aerial problems. Now, I know a lot of people, I could immediately hear the response with people countering and saying, well, he hardly ever scores with his head. But I think Joaquin Correa gives Scaloni up a different dimension that he probably would get. And then you already have players like Julian Alvarez and Lautaro Martinez and these guys who have different characteristics. And maybe his logic was, okay, we already have players like Lautaro with the same kind of height, not the same kind of players. But it will be good to have a player like Correa in there because of his height. He can dribble when he takes on players, and he has the ability to play multiple positions in offense. And he could even, if required, drop as a wide player if required. So I think his versatility, I think, is what kind of edged him over Angel Correa, which to me, if I was a coach, that would have been hard. I don't know how I would have picked this squad. I'd have probably still been staring at the wall trying to figure out how to include Angel as well. So I understand, the conflict with people trying to decide between which Correa. I understand some people's arguments, but I get why Correa is there. And if he could really sharpen up his finishing, I think he would be a true asset. But the thing is, you never know. I mean, look what happened to Gonzalo Higuain. He played really well, and then for the finals, it happens. It happens. So I mean, that's my thought as an Inter Milan fan. I know his strengths, and like I said, his one weakness is that sometimes he does have some chances that he could bury, and he doesn't have that ruthlessness, and it sometimes pisses off Inter Milan fans. But I think when the time comes, Joaquin will come good for us, and I think we may not necessarily need him as a goal scorer. I think he will be more like a support striker if required. And if required, he is an aerial option in the box because of his height. So that's my thoughts on Joaquin. My best guess, if I had to say anything about Correa. Mm-hmm. So, I know that's a little bit of a discussion I saw in some of the forums, but personally, I'm happy with it. I think Julian Alvarez is that little ace in the hole. Where he's very unpredictable. He has that young cockiness about him. I remember in the Finalissima where he tried to, lob Donnarumma from almost half field. Argentina wouldn't be an Argentina team without a player like that, who has that audacious sort of, would try something no other player would try, like Ortega back in the day, that sort of thing. And I also like that he's being trained by Pep Guardiola. So I think, I think if he was not at Manchester City, I think Correa would have gone and maybe Alvarez would have stayed at home. But I think because he's there and he's getting some goals and playing with Haaland. But what do you think? What do you think about Alvarez?
Well, I'm not surprised to see Alvarez in the team. Mm-hmm. I mean, as much as we can talk about Man City and Haaland most of the time, but what people don't realize is that, what does Julian Alvarez brings to that City team? In the absence of Haaland, he steps it up.
Yep.
And, he scores goals. He makes chances. There was a lot of questions about, how would Julian Alvarez fit into that City team, the fact they already signed Haaland. But I think a lot of people don't realize is that he's far more than just your typical goal scorer. He makes chances. He drifts wide. He troubles defenders. And that's the kind of versatility that I believe Scaloni wants out of Julian Alvarez, and felt that, him going to City would have been a good move for him. And like what you mentioned, because he's playing at City, because he's doing all these other things, that's the reason why Scaloni is taking him to Qatar rather than, sticking with Angel Correa.
Yep.
Angel Correa would have been a safe option. But when it comes to Argentina, you sometimes need that outsider that comes in, it brings that little bit of spark to the team. And Julio Alvarez, in my opinion, has that.
Correct. And I think, of course, at the end of the day, none of us could really truly know what's going to happen. So we're giving our best guesses as to what Scaloni will do. And I think, this Argentina team has been pretty much the same with little variations for the last 2 or 3 years. So, you won't really expecting too much surprises. And I think even the fans are aware of the squad. It's a nice, tight unit. So, even though we did lose, and I say we as in Argentina, Lo Celso, I think, the choices that were made, while some people may not totally agree, I still think the majority of Argentina fans are like, okay, I can understand. Or I understand his reasoning, and, everybody's kind of reasonably confident, which is a complete contrast to how we were in 2018, where we just didn't know what was going to happen. So, we kind of went through the squad there. So, obviously, the group stage is coming up. The first game is against, oh gosh, why is the name eluding me right now?
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia. What do you think the starting lineup based on this squad is now? What do you think? What formation and what starting lineup you think he's going to go with?
I think Scaloni is just going to maintain his usual starting lineup, which is sort of like a 4-2-3-1. And I think he's still going to maintain, pretty much the same, defensive lineup with Otamendi, Romero in the central back pairing, Molina on the right, Tagliafico on the left, and of course Rodrigo De Paul and Paredes in that middle. Messi being up front just behind the striker Lautaro Martinez. And I'm not too sure whether he's going to start with Angel Di Maria. I think most likely he will, or maybe he might, since it's Saudi Arabia. I mean, all the respect to them, probably he'll go with a different option, which I kind of like. And then the other, filling in that role where Lo Celso occupies, as I mentioned earlier, I have a feeling it's going to be McAllister.
I think so as well. I'm not trying to be disrespectful as well, but I'm not going to say I've watched football enough now to know, for example, in 2014
against Iran.
Yeah, most teams would, which makes sense. If you're playing against a team like Argentina, you're going to try to lock things down and maybe try to do a smash and grab. Teams that, and I don't like to say park the bus because I hate that too. I don't like to use it anymore, although I like different tactics. So if a team has to defend, it would make sense. And I think that's what we'll see. It will be very important in that first game that Argentina scores reasonably early, so they're relaxed. Because I remember,
I mean, let's not forget, Saudi Arabia will be more comfortable considering, they're playing in Qatar. They're quite used to the weather and the circumstances around there, something which Argentina may not have to their advantage. This little thing matters in the World Cup. Quite often we overlook on things. We see things as in who they got, who's playing for them against, that's one way to look at it. But football has evolved a lot beyond that. And the fact that Saudi Arabia, being in Middle Eastern countries, in the World Cup at the Middle East, it could help them in some way.
While I'm confident that they will make it out of the group, I know it's going to be difficult. And for example, that the 2014 World Cup, that when we got to the finals, those first 2 games were tough. It took some amazing goals from Messi to really make the difference. And it's not like Argentina played badly. I mean, there was one mistake, I think, from Romero, I think. But other than that, that's where the quality came in, because while, both teams set up defensively, Argentina did create chances, and eventually you need that, magic or skill player, which in this case, it was Messi, to really get that goal. And I think the other one in the first game was from a set piece, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that first game will probably get rid of a lot of nerves, which is why I honestly believe, and I made this statement in the 2018 World Cup, I think if we won that game against Iceland a bit more convincingly, I think Argentina would not have been as panicked as they were in that group. I think when they drew at Iceland, there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes, but that didn't help. We all saw that game and we try to forget that game where, they drew, they looked out of sorts because I think they had one less friendly compared to everybody else, things like that. So I think heading into the first game, while I'm quietly confident, I think Argentina will win, but, they're not going to make it easy. But I think if Argentina manages to score early, we'll probably do a preview closer to the game with myself and James Beard. And folks, EXTV will be trying to have daily shows. We have a little secret, James and I. Sivan will definitely join us from time to time, where we'll be having shows with all the other games as well. Of course, I'm going to talk about Argentina in one of the coolest sports bars in Trinidad and Tobago during the World Cup. So, we'll try to teleport Sivan across and get him in here.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, we have to fly these VIPs out, But anyway, back to the game.
And let's not forget one more important thing: stability.
Yeah.
We spoke about we always stability has always been a vital word when it comes to Argentina. We never had that going into 2018.
True.
There was I remember in the post 2014 era whereby when we lost that back-to-back Copa America, we sort of like kept everything in the same way as Alejandro Sabella made it for Argentina. But it was only after we lost the Copa Centenario that suddenly we went into this panic mode of trying to figure out, trying to change things up. With the World Cup, it's just only less than 2 years away. It didn't really help.
Yep.
We had Edgardo Bauza who came in, and he didn't stick around for too long. And then we had Sampaoli, tried to revamp the entire team, try to overall change the gameplay and all that. It just never worked. Going to this World Cup, I'm happy to see that stability is the word of the day with this Argentina team.
Yep.
Given the fact that given the fact that ever since they lost that Copa America semi-final to Brazil in 2019, that has been the mainstay of what brought this team to where it is today. I know a lot of people will question, about our unbeaten run against, we never played against European opposition and all that. But what people need to remember is that most of our opponents, especially the ones from South America, are no easy teams. There are no easy qualifiers. Even the bottom ranked team in CONMEBOL, which I believe is Bolivia, look at their FIFA ranking, look at where they are. That tells you a lot, the journey that Argentina went through over these last 3 years. It's not been easy for them to able to achieve this.
Correct.
I think people need to be mindful of that. Even though, we didn't get a chance to play against Germany, Spain, or England for that matter. We couldn't do it because they were busy with either their own Euro qualifiers or the UEFA Nations League. They don't have time to play against friendly nations against outside of UEFA.
Yeah.
But still, given the credit that we are playing against teams like Bolivia, traveling to places like Colombia, Ecuador, and all that, it's no easy feat. People need to remember that.
Yeah, correct. It's something that it's easy to overlook. Everybody made reference to Italy, but I still think even though Italy won the Euros, they sort of they petered off a bit. Argentina, after the Copa America, could have easily fallen into that complacency and gone into the Finalissima, all arrogant and lost, but they didn't. You could see how focused they were. In fact, they look stronger, more scary, to be honest. Yes, Italy's a European team. They were the champions of Europe. And, this Italian team, even though they didn't do well and then qualify for the World Cup, it's still no easy team to play.
And they probably had Mbappe's comment in mind going to that game about South American teams.
Yes, and I think you're right. You're right. I was just going to say that, that may have had a good effect for Argentina, but not the effect Mbappe was thinking. Because anybody who's followed Messi throughout his entire career knows when you annoy Messi, it is usually to your detriment. Even his teammates as well said that, when you tell him he can't do something, he's one of those players that it works against you when you try to demotivate Messi. I remember even Manuel Neuer, he said, Messi couldn't score him on the World Cup, and then for Bayern Munich, he tore him to shreds. I think in the Champions League the year afterwards. So, that's different. It's club and whatever, and people make their arguments about Barcelona versus Argentina. But I think, overall, heading into this competition, I could see and I could understand, not just an Argentina fan, why people are confident about Argentina's chances. Of course, anything goes in the World Cup, it is what it is. We've seen really good teams before fall over, but I can't really see that happening. I think while they have a really strong team, I think, overall in the group stage, I think it will be tough going. Mexico is a team that plays like a totally different team during the World Cup. They really step it up during World Cup. So they've never given Argentina an easy time. Argentina eventually came out, but they always had to, they made them work.
And they have a secret weapon in Tata Martino.
Yes.
Who knows a little bit of in and out of Argentina as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, we have an Argentine coach there who could be, a little bit of a pain. It always seems like when we play Mexico, they have an Argentine coach. It feels like that sometimes.
But
And
we
then
score the better goals against
yes,
them.
yes, yes. Carlos Tevez, Maxi Rodriguez. Listen,
Yeah.
look those goals up, people. Those goals are insane. Because a lot of people, I actually had to remind people and show them on YouTube how good that goal was because it was ridiculous. Beautiful goal. And then obviously, we have, Mr. Lewandowski and his boys. He is a top striker. And, we have a defense that's capable of dealing with it. But, by no means it's a team that we could really underestimate. So, overall, we'll have another video where we go into the actual games, game by game, which will include James Baird as well. And we'll try to get Sivan on because of the time difference. But what do you think Argentina's chances are getting out of the group? And they I mean, we kind of touched on this already, but how do you think they're going to finish in the group? And how do you think their overall performance is going to be in the World Cup? I know as an Argentinian fan, it's hard to separate the fan versus the, trying to be analytical, but let me know your thoughts.
I think, I think 9 points is, I'm pretty confident they can take 9 points from all these 3 games. I don't foresee there's going to be easy games. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be all 3 close call games. And my hope is that, the coaching staff and the players don't get too complacent about things and understand that this is the World Cup. Whoever we play against, it doesn't matter. There's no such thing as big nation or small nations.
Correct.
These are nations competing at the World Cup, regardless where they come from.
Mhm.
They are going to bring their A game. It's up to us to do the same as well. As far as I look at it, I don't foresee that we can't get 9 points. I don't foresee that, I believe it's going to be a close game, maybe like, a 2 goals difference. I don't see anything beyond that. I'm not going to say we're going to have another situation like what we did against South Korea in 2010 or Serbia and Montenegro in 2006. I think those days are long gone.
Yep.
When it comes to major, we've looked at the trend when it comes to major international football competition. Coaches, teams tend to be a little bit pragmatic in their approach. We saw that with France in 2018. Even though they had all the best players capable of playing beautiful, entertaining football, but they were very pragmatic in their approach. Similarly, we even saw that with Germany in 2014. Teams need to have this sort of versatility, this sort of balance, especially in major tournament. That's just how I look at things.
Correct. I couldn't have said it any better. I think it's going to be 9 points, but I think it's going to be a very difficult 9 points. Of course, folks, we can be wrong. Things could happen. But I think they're going to have to work hard, as Sivan said, and they're definitely going to make it out of the group. And then once you get to the knockout stages, I always say in knockout stages anything goes. But I think I'm definitely way more confident in their abilities this time around than the last time. And I think they have the ability to not just have a decent run, but they have a squad capable of taking the entire thing. So that's not from arrogance. That's just, it is what it is, as well as other teams as well, which we'll talk about on the show as well. But, that's my thoughts. So, Sivan, any final thoughts on the team after we covered everything?
Well, it's just 1 week away. I do not know my feelings right now. It's just, I'm pretty excited. I'm just over the moon. Even though, yes, when it comes to my professional job, it's the most critical time of the year. But, the World Cup is the World Cup. It's going to have a huge impact in my day-to-day life. It's going to be taking a lot of my time. Yeah, I just can't wait to get it started, man. I mean, we waited this for 4 years. I remember when we got knocked out of France in 2018,
Yep.
there was a bit of, grim feeling about, what the future is like for Argentina. And we've been there. You and I been there.
Yep.
And, a lot of people need to remember, our support for this team is not just, being a fanboy kind of support. We are emotionally and mentally invested into supporting this team.
Yep.
When this team lose, it's not just we are losing a football game, it's almost losing a little bit part of that life that we have of us, a little bit of that soul that we have in us. And I'm thinking, if this is the future of Argentina, will I ever get back that feeling in 4 years down the road in Qatar? Thank God it's back.
Yes.
And I'm really, to be honest, if I had it my way, I would have won the World Cup to start tomorrow.
Yep.
But, it is 1 week away. We'll try to be patient and wait for it. After all, I know this anxiety, all this thing kicks in. The more, the better it gets.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, man.
Yes. I already have one. As you can see, folks, Sivan and I already dressed up. He has the away kit. I have the home kit, and we'll rotate as the tournament goes along. because these jerseys, I actually have a video talking about these jerseys. You can check them out, but listen, jerseys or not, if you're an Argentinian fan, it doesn't matter. But I agree with what you're saying, Sivan. I remember back in 2018, it really looked, and we had conversations as well. Like we were actually having conversations like, wow, what is Argentina? What's next for Argentina? I think I even did a post once on the EXTV Media website, which we're updating right now, folks. So you can check that out. Where I think I put like, what happened with Argentina? What's next? Because it really looked like we were lost. And I know at that point in time, the AFA said they were going to start cleaning things up. And it really looked like a far-fetched scenario, Argentina really bouncing back. And then thankfully, we're in a place where we're in a calm, tranquil place heading into this World Cup. And I think it really looks like we're going to have, a positive tournament and not a very scary, highly stressful one. And at the same time, I don't want to say it and, jinx it too much, but at least this time around is a little bit more calm than it was in the last World Cup. So,
Yep.
as Sivan said, folks, it's something we feel. I don't think it's hard to explain. It's very intangible, but we feel every minute of every game with this team. So, it's almost like I think I actually, age maybe I probably aged 10 years more than I should because of some of these games. But it is what it is. That's the love and the passion. With the stress comes the happiness of the victory. I remember, we spoke after the Copa America. There's a video with Sivan and I talking about this. I'll put a link in the description below. So, we'll see how it goes. So, with that being said, we'll definitely be doing previews and discussions with the other teams heading into the World Cup. We're also going to do some live streams with myself versus some other guys in the World Cup game that you see behind. FIFA 23 gave an update. Of course, guess who I'm going to play with? I'm going to give you all a wild guess, who I'm going to play with. So we'll be doing that. I'll give my reactions on the game.
And, just another small note. I mean, I remember, even back in 2014, going to the World Cup, there was a bit of concern about the future.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't really much, talents coming in at the time. And I think we felt the same way in 2018. But look at what Argentina is wearing now. You talked about they clean up the house. I mean, I don't think it's far from clean, but at least it's much more revamped than where it ever was.
Yep.
Right now, if you talk about this squad, this Scaloni team, I mean, that's one thing to talk about. Let's look about the other one, the Javier Mascherano is coaching. Your Garnacho, your Luca Romero, your Nicolas Paz, and all these other young talented players coming in. I mean, I'm really excited, not just for this World Cup, but even for the future, what Argentina has.
Correct. And it's been a long time since we felt like that, since the Peckerman system died a horrible death. Back in 2010, it was looking scary. A lot of us said that cycle, which was the one from 2014 that kind of ran on for the two Copa Americas, like after that, there was legitimate concerns about what was going to happen. So thankfully we don't have to worry about that. We're seeing the improvements, and I think the AFA realized this, and I think they understand, and obviously winning the Copa America helps, but I think they understood. I think even if he didn't win the Copa America and he just got to the final, I think they would have kept him around, because what Scaloni has done on his team is often overlooked. I still think that he still doesn't get the credit he deserves for what he's done, because we were in a mess. Argentina was in a mess, and they've managed to stabilize things. So we'll see how the tournament plays out, and of course Sivan and I will be in the middle of it, especially with the Argentina games. We'll have James Beard and other guys as well. We'll have Sivan Jones popping in from time to time, even some cricket guys who are massive fans of football. They say they want to join in as well, so we'll have people as well. And also, we'll have our EXTV Media website relaunched. So we'll have some new content there. Maybe we'll influence Sivan John to write something, be a guest blogger, because, he's been doing this a while now. So, with that being said, folks, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment in the comment section below. Follow us on Instagram. Check out the website. Follow us on Twitter. I'll be doing some streams as well, so you can check that out as well. We have a lot of content coming, and not just Argentina. So once again, Sivan, it's an absolute pleasure to have you as always. It's been many years, and we continue to talk about Argentina with the same passion. And, we have an exciting World Cup to look forward to.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Andre. And when it comes to Argentina, especially when it comes to Argentina at the World Cup, you can count on me in. I'll try my best to make it here. Yes, definitely. Yes.
Like Batman, I'll put my AFA signal in the sky, and Sivan sees it in Malaysia, and he knows. He knows what that means. He knows it's time.
Okay.
It's like he's like, Andre's Argentina is playing. So, folks, let me know what you think in the comment section below. What do you think about Argentina's chances? What do you think about the squad? We'll have an audio version only of this on Spotify. So, those of you who can't look at the video, you could be cruising in your car and just listen to me and Sivan in our very charismatic voices and hear what we have to say about Argentina. Or if you disagree, that's fine. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. So once again, folks, it's been an absolute pleasure. Sivan, thank you for joining us. And folks, the World Cup is coming soon. Stay tuned.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.